Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jim Heyman. I am the Vice President of Controls Central, and I want to start out by saying thank you for being on our webinar today. We know you're busy, and we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join this training session. I think you're going to be very glad you did. I want to take just a couple of moments to mention a few things about how we do our webinars, and then we're going to get right into the content, and I'll introduce our presenters. In order to reduce the distraction and to make sure we have a training webinar that everyone can hear clearly, each of you as attendees will be muted, and so you will not be able to interact directly with our two presenters today. However, they very much want your questions, they want interaction, and so there is a chat box, and you're welcome. In fact, we encourage you to put your questions in there when you think of them, type them in real quick, and Brett and Dennis will get to those either during or at the end of the webinar. So please do that. Also, we are recording this webinar today, and it will be available to all of you on the call. We'll be getting that out to you. So again, thank you for your time. We appreciate you being customers on Controls Central, and let's move ahead. I want to introduce Brett Baarstad is the Sales and Business Development Manager for U.S. Motors Nidec, and he is going to be leading it out here today. And Dennis Campbell is the Regional Manager, again, U.S. Motors, based out of St. Louis. And gentlemen, want to welcome you. We appreciate this ECM overview and solutions. It's all yours.
Thank you, Jim. This is Brett Baarstad. As Jim said, I'm Sales and Business Development Manager out of Chicago for U.S. Motors, with Dennis Campbell, our Regional Manager out of St. Louis. Today we put together just a nice overview of what the ECM world looks like, so to speak, as far as upcoming FER ratings, those type of things that are changing, along with what an ECM is, different types of ECM, and then some of the solutions out there with ECM product. So I'm going to turn it over to Dennis right now, and he's going to spend some time on U.S. Motors and some history on U.S. Motors, and then get into the ECM product discussion.
Okay, yeah. So we just want to briefly make sure everybody's aware of who we are. We are Nidec Motor Corporation. Our motor brand is U.S. Motors. We are formerly Emerson Motors. However, it's been a long time, 10 years now. Time flies since Emerson sold us to Nidec. Nidec is actually the world's largest motor manufacturer. But there's still, even though it's been 10 years, there's still some confusion out there that, we're Emerson. And so just again, reiterate that we're no longer affiliated with Emerson in any way. They still have company. They're still a viable company. They're just not in the motor business anymore. Nidec, world's largest motor manufacturer. We're close to $15 billion in motor sales annually. We started back, Nidec was started back in 1973 by the owner and founder, Mr. Nagamori. But our breadth of product spans anywhere from, as you can see here, this little motor that is sitting on, trying to get the highlighter up, on this person's finger here over on the side. That's a little motor that you'll find in every Apple phone, anyone that's been a 5S or newer, and anytime that phone vibrates, that's a little Nidec motor in there. And then as you can see, this motor next to this lady here, this young lady here, we also manufacture motors all the way up to 40,000 horsepower. And then, of course, the side of the business that Brett and I are on is the HVAC refrigeration side. So and in particular, the aftermarket. So we have a full breadth of product. Our catalog, breadth of product is over 4,000 SKUs. So we definitely cover the field you guys are working in, along with, as you can see, Nidec's full capabilities.
Brett, did we
There
lose
we
you?
go.
Oh, okay.
Here. We're just, we had a little issue changing the screen.
Yeah, that wouldn't advance, but we got it. Okay, when we talk ECM, one of the main changes that are coming up and is coming up soon is the government has implemented or will on July 3rd a new regulation. It's called the FER, Fan Efficiency Rating, and that is just a measurement that the Department of Energy came up to essentially increase the efficiency of heating equipment. To get to your FER, you're looking at, you divide your CFM divided by your watts, and that'll get you to a number that you see on the right side, the chart to the right. And those are the new guidelines for the blower assembly for new heating equipment. Now, the thing to note is that the regulation does not speak about a motor. Okay, the issue is as you look here on this chart, and I'm having a little trouble with my pointer here, so bear with me 1 second. See if I can get it to work. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so as you look here, the PSC motor, which we're all that's been around for a long time, that we're most comfortable, that's been in the system. The best measurement, the best FER that PSC motor can get is a 413. Now these lines here, black, blue, and red, equate to the different types of heating equipment out there, and each one has its own required rating for the FER. So as you see, 275 is the highest, and that's for condensing furnace. Now we also make a high efficient PSC. That's what PEP stands for, premium efficient PSC. And however, using even a premium efficient PSC in that blower assembly does not meet that FER requirement. So the only type of motor, at least as I sit here today, that any of the equipment manufacturers have, Lennox, Trane, Goodman, Rheem, yep, any of those guys have been able to develop to meet this regulation. It's all using an ECM. Okay, so from July 3rd, just to wrap that up, July 3rd, the equipment guys at this point will not be able to make any of these type of equipment using anything but an ECM. But want to point out one very important thing too is that it does not pertain or does not state anything about a PSC motor, so you don't have to worry about, am I going to be able to work on PSCs? Can I still install a PSC in a system that's already out in the field? There's no retro, they're not retrofitting or making you switch everything to an ECM, although there's an option to do that, but you do not have to do that. Okay? Just all new equipment. We're still here.
While you guys, that's fine.
Go
While
ahead.
you're doing that, there's something I didn't mention at the beginning. This is Jim. For those of you that are on the call with us here, if you look on the panel on your right, you'll see that there are 4 handouts that you can click and download to your computer. You can see the titles on there. So anyway, I was remiss in not mentioning those. So are you getting your screen to advance there, Brett or Dennis?
Yep. All set.
All right.
Okay, so we want to talk about the benefits of ECM, because there are, using an ECM, an electronically commutated motor in a system, there's actually benefits there. The first thing is energy efficiency. So our blower motor, our ECM blower motor, is 82% efficient. However, you can see here we're listing it at, you can get the system efficiency up to 85 to 90% efficient. And that's because of the precise control you have over an ECM. So when that system does not need to be on the highest speed the motor is capable of running at, it will run at the speed it's necessary. And so you're not wasting any energy there versus going just on at full load, off, on, off. You can go at 65%, 75%, 73%, whatever that system needs to satisfy the call for heat or cool. or whatever operations you have in that system, the motor can provide that and not waste any energy. So that's how your system can get all the way up to 85 to 90% efficient. Also, the variable speed, it goes along with that precise control. So with the variable speed, again, you're changing the speed, but within an ECM, it's actually less costly and actually it doesn't pose any threats or longevity threats to the motor. If you use a motor with an external drive, like on a VFD and a 3-phase motor, that's actually a more costly solution because that drive is going to cost the same as that motor. Whereas with the ECM that has the integrated control is a less costly, and it's a more efficient solution as well. Also, an ECM is OEM programmable. So when you have an ECM in your system, the equipment manufacturers have tailored that or programmed that motor to operate at speeds specifically for that piece of equipment. Compare that to that PSC motor. There's some variances of speed. Maybe you got your top speed, maybe from 1120 down to 1075, and then you can drop maybe 30 RPMs off of that. But pretty much every, let's say, half horsepower motor is the same if you put it in one system or put it in the other. There's no real the customization of a PSC is minimal compared to that OEM ECM, where they're programming it specifically for that piece of equipment. And finally, with an ECM, there's that low speed. Okay, and so when we talk low speed with an ECM, you're usually talking about dropping the motor when it's not heating or cooling, dropping the motor for circulation down to about half the speed. Okay, so we'll just use standard on a blower motor, typically 1200 RPMs, half of that, so you're circulating at 600 RPMs. With the PSC, that same 1075, 1100 RPM motor, the lowest it's going to be able to go down is to 1000 RPMs. Okay, so you're saving energy there as well, and it's improving that indoor air quality with that low speed of the ECM. Okay, so that's the overview, the benefits of ECM, but ECM stands for electronically commutated motors. Some other terms you may hear, brushless DC or BLDC, BL motors or DC motors. But when you talk about an ECM, it's also referring to a BPM and a motor control. So the BPM is brushless permanent magnets, and that term is referring to is the magnets that are on the rotor. Okay, so if you're not, I guess also real quick, in case you're not fully aware of the different components of a motor, you have your rotor that has the shaft pressed into it. You have your stator that has your windings and your laminations, your stator for horsepower, poles, and the copper is for your poles for speed. And then the additional, so what's unique to an ECM is you have the control. So this is the brains of that motor. Without that motor, that control being programmed, the motor will not operate. Compare that to that PSC. You energize it with your high voltage, 115, 230 volt. Usually that motor is going to run. Not true with an ECM. If it's not programmed, it's not going to run, even if you're energizing it with that line voltage. So in an ECM, what we're doing is we're taking AC, a single phase AC, we rectify it or convert it over to DC, and then we're actually outputting 3-phase power to the motor. So we're creating 3-phase power to your ECM. So an ECM is actually, the motor part is a 3-phase motor. Okay, and so if you look at, okay, so we just real quick on some qualities for the US motors. Our surge, so your biggest failure for an ECM is surge and moisture, okay, or elevated amps. And so we have 6,000 volt surge protection, and you compare that to the OEMs The older ones were 2,500. The other ones now are at 4,000, but again, we're at 6,000 volts, so we have superior voltage protection. And then the epoxy, that black material inside that control, that's covering the components so moisture doesn't affect the motor. And so we do have a superior ECM compared to other manufacturers out there. We have very little failures on our ECM. It's much less than it is on our on PSC motors, and some may not believe that, but that is the case. Yes. And then on the motor side, we already talked about that, ball bearing and ferrite magnets. There we go. Okay, quickly, there's 3 modes of operation for an ECM: constant torque, constant CFM, and constant speed. And this is important to understand because it's another benefit, another benefit in the system over that PSC motor. So if you look here up in the top right, on a constant torque motor, so a constant torque motor, when you energize a speed tap, it's set for a specific torque point. The speed, then that equates to a speed in the system. As static pressure changes though, the motor will change its speed, but at the same time, it's maintaining torque. Now compare that to that PSC motor. It changes its speed, but it loses torque. So the airflow on a PSC as static pressure increases drops off drastically. Whereas with a constant torque motor, maintaining torque, that airflow does not decrease. So as your filters get clogged, maybe a vent gets closed, that airflow is not going to reduce like it does on the PSC motor. And constant CFM, that motor can change torque and speed at any combination it needs to. And by doing that, it's able to maintain airflow with no drop off. So again, much better than that PSC motor. And constant speed, that's set for constant speed. That's usually for like an outdoor motor, like an outdoor condenser fan. It's just going to be at 1 speed. So we don't really talk about static pressure with a constant speed because it's a different application for those. Okay, very important. So when you're talking ECM, to identify it. When you guys are out there, you need to find how do I get the ECM I need to replace the one I just took out? And it's very simple. You don't have to worry about what I just talked about: constant torque, constant CFM, constant speed. That doesn't mean anything to you guys other than as far as your replacement. It tells you why, the benefit of it, but it really gets down to these connectors, okay? And so what we've started to do is to really start to identify ECM by their speed taps, the number of speed taps they have on the low voltage side. So the first ECM you have is a 5-pin ECM. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins. Next is 16 pins. So you have 16 small low voltage speed taps and then 4 pin. Okay. So when next time you come across an ECM, you need a replacement. You need to identify, say, I need a 5-pin ECM, I need a 16-pin ECM, or I need a 4-pin ECM. And then be able to identify what your options are from there. And that's what we're going to go into now. What are your options for the different ECMs available to you today? Okay, in the aftermarket. So right now, the products you have available that you could that are available today is constant torque. That's the 5-pin. So you have the 5-pin ECM. That's the Rescue Select. Okay. Then you have, I'm gonna skip one because what you have today is a PSC to an ECM upgrade. So you can take out a PSC. You've now seen the benefits of an ECM. You want to take advantage of those without putting in a whole new piece of equipment. You can pull out the PSC and put in an ECM, and that's our Rescue Ecotech. As well as you have a Rescue Ecotech Outdoor. So you can do the same thing. Take your PSC condenser fan motor out and put in an ECM to get that efficiency gain there. And the one I skipped is the 16-pin. 16-pin will be out in a few months. Okay, so the first one, where are we at? Okay, the first product we have is that Rescue Select, and it's that 5-pin ECM replacement. So it doesn't matter what brand of equipment that you are working on. If it's a 5-pin ECM, you have that available to you, and you could get that from Control Central on the e-commerce, and that motor will replace any brand out there. Okay. There are generic profiles on that motor, so it is pre-programmed for you. Now, one thing to note, when you just take it out of the box and use it at the generic setup, you won't be matching exactly the OEM. So the best thing to do is to have the motor programmed. You can program the motor yourself using an app. Okay, so, and I just want to show you some examples. So out of the box is the green line you see here. And those are a couple different. Ours out of the box, there's an Evergreen motor out there, and there's a Azure motor is the yellow line. But as you can see, the profile from the OEM, it's much lower than what's out of the box there. Okay, so it will work. The generic will work. You'll be pushing a little bit more air than you were before, which will make the system a little bit less efficient. But again, programming it back to the OEM specs is available with the Rescue Select product. Okay, just another one, Rheem. You can see the red line compared to the generic. Here's a Goodman and then a Coleman. So they flip their leads. Their highest is tap 1. So again, Rescue Select 5-pin ECM is available to you today. Does not matter what make or model that you're working on. If it's a 5-pin ECM, you have that solution available to you today. And the good news is it's a half to a third of the cost and going back to the OEM. We offer a 2-year warranty on that motor. Okay, so you'll get if you program it, you'll get the right airflow. You won't have that wrong airflow issues of too much air or not enough air. So Rescue Select 5-pin is available to you today. Our next product is the Rescue Ecotech. So the Rescue Ecotech is that drop-in replacement for a PSC. So it's 82% efficient at high speed, at full load, versus that 60 to 65 for that 65% efficient for that standard PSC motor. Now, what makes our product unique from any other PSC replacements is our patented control allows you to wire that motor exactly the same way as that PSC was wired. There's also 5 speeds, and it's a constant torque motor. So we just talked about that based on static pressure changes, or if you have a higher static pressure, you're going to be able to maintain that airflow much better than that PSC motor that you'd be taking out. Important, this is not the OEM. So Rescue Select is if it's an OEM 5-pin, Ecotech is a PSC, you're putting in an ECM. Okay, also 2-year warranty. Okay, the motor is reversible. It's dual voltage. Okay, and all ECM motors are ball bearing.
Hey, real quick, I'll add to this. One of the nice features about Ecotech, we make 4 models of this motor. Here it is here, I'm sorry. And it gives you from 1 horse down to a 5th horse. Probably our most popular is the 5532, which covers from a 1/2 horse down to a 1/4. And you can see how simple it is. So your wiring harness has 5 wires coming off of it. In the 1/2 horse 5532 case, the black lead is going to go to cool, the yellow lead is going to go to the heat. You're going to park the other 2, and the red is going to be constant fan. Constant fan is always red. If you don't have a constant fan tab on your board, we provide a splitter that we pull power off the door switch on the furnace. Gives you the red lead for that hot.
And so if you look at how, this is just an example. You have a PSC board on the left. You use the same exact board when you're installing the Ecotech. And so just like what Brett said, based on that chart, you determine which leads you're connecting to cool, to heat, and then the red always goes to continuous fan. Okay, same on the Ecotech, your cool, heat, and continuous fan. However, there isn't a capacitor. So in that sense, the Ecotech even being an ECM is actually easier to install compared to that PSC motor.
We've got contractors here in Chicago that This is the only motor, and then Dennis has them also in St. Louis. They carry two Ecotechs, a 5542 and a 5532 on the truck, and they do not do any PSC replacement. They just use the Ecotech motor for every replacement they do. So great truck stock product for contractors.
And so also there's rebates available. So if you take out a PSC motor, put in an ECM, there's many utilities across the country that are offering rebates. Out of St. Louis, we have Ameren offering a rebate. I know we have, who's here in this area?
ComEd offers, they just renewed a new rebate for the replacing an ECM motor, or excuse me, a PSC motor with an ECM product, and it's $100 for a motor. And in addition to that, if you do $100, you'll get a $100 rebate on a SmartStat. If you do both of those, they'll give you an additional $50. So it's a $250 rebate when you upgrade an ECM motor to an ECM motor from a PSC and add a SmartStat.
Yep. And so, there's many utilities, I think probably 2,000 different utility companies around the country. So wherever you're at, feel free to reach out. We can help determine if you have a rebate. And you may be able to reach out yourself or know those that answer too. So keep that in mind. Oh, and the PSC, the ECM, the Ecotech is about $150 more than what you'd pay for, and that's roughly, I don't know your exact cost, but that's typically an average than what you'd pay for that equivalent horsepower in a PSC motor. Okay, and then finally we have the Rescue Ecotech Outdoor. Okay, so this is a high efficient ECM condenser fan. That's that constant speed ECM. So you can pull out your PSC blower motor, your indoor motor, and take out your PSC outdoor motor and install the Ecotech Outdoor for that. That covers a fifth through a third. It's only in 208, 230 volt for that outdoor condenser fan. What's nice about this, especially again, thinking truck stock, this motor can be set up to operate at 825, which is an 8-pole motor, and a 1075, which is a 6-pole motor. Okay, compare that to that PSC. You'd have to carry one motor to do 825 and another motor to carry 1070 to operate at 1075. You still have all the quality features, that 6,000 volt surge protection, and obviously we have beefed up moisture protection because it's an outdoor motor on the Ecotech Outdoor. Okay.
And Jim, that is it for our presentation. If you any questions or comments from your audience, that would be great.
All right, good job, you guys. Yes, for those of you that are on the call here with us, if you haven't already, please type in the chat box any questions that you have. Brett and Dennis would be glad to answer those. I have one here that maybe we could use to kind of kick things off. Dennis, you were talking about the PSC motors. Will they still be produced after the July 3rd date for the FER regulation?
Yes, absolutely. And we predict, for at least, eventually, just since they're not going to be installed, using PSC motors in the equipment after July 3rd, eventually that number will drop. But remember that the regulation does not speak about a motor. So if you're still repairing equipment out there, we'll still have PSC motors. Will be manufacturing those for a very long time. We haven't even put a timetable on when to stop them. That will kind of take care of itself, but it will at least be 10, 15 years down the road at our earliest estimations.
Okay. All right. Good. We have several ways that the questions come in. Harshal, are you seeing any questions on your screen?
Yeah, Jim, I don't see any questions yet.
Okay. All right. I've got another one here. It is, and I think you talked about this right at the end. There are utility rebates available for installing the ECM. Is that something that's always changing? Maybe they checked that 6 months ago or last year and there wasn't, and now there is. Does that change?
It is, Jim. As a matter of fact, the ComEd one changed just here in May, but they are changing, and I think we've been working with utilities to try to get this motor, the Ecotech motor, added to more and more rebate programs. I attended a summit about 2 months ago where there were about 150 different co-op and utilities there, and the product that we displayed was the Ecotech, and it really was well received. And I would have to say 85% of the utilities that were there in attendance all felt very highly that it would be something that they would add to their program. So we're going to continue to get out in front of these utility companies and co-ops and share this information with them to get this motor added to their programs.
Yeah, and one other thing I'd like to add to that, Jim, is just anybody that's on this, or as you know, maybe a note to send out when you send out the recording, is if they have a utility or they think this product is something that they could be value and they could use a rebate, and they know and they want to share with us the utilities they deal with, we also have resources internally to work with the utility to get our motor into their system and a rebate offered. So there's so many of them. So giving us help, believe it or not, does help us to give us the right utility companies to go work with.
Okay. All right. I think you covered this somewhat, the ECM products, comparing them to the original OEM motors. Is that pretty well understood in the marketplace that this is definitely an upgrade?
I think it's something that we're working on with different sales teams out there, you know, at the wholesale level. I think the big hurdle is getting a salesperson comfortable with what this product is and comfortable enough to talk about it and really bring it up in a conversation with a contractor. We know we've got, you know, some work ahead of us to do to make that easier for these guys to be able to do that. And I think I mean, it's not new technology, but I think with the FER rating, those things coming about, you've got the ECM has been something that's been more front and center, so to speak. And I think more and more contractors are paying attention to that, the ECM, you know, words or letters when they see that now. So.
Yeah, and then also just in general with the OEM, what is somewhat new in the last 3 to 5 years is the fact that the contractors have an option now to go to their, you know, get something in the aftermarket. You know, before we came out with the products we went through today, and that's only been, you know, a little over 3 years ago, the only thing they could do is go back to the equipment manufacturers and have someone order them a motor. And so that's the real key when you're talking OEM, is you have options as a contractor now. You don't have to go back to the OEM, which makes it makes the availability instant, right? You have them on the shelf there, plus the cost. You know, the OEMs they don't make any motors. They're buying them from a manufacturer like us, like Nidec US Motors, and then marking them up. So your cost position on an aftermarket ECM is going to be lower than you would if you were going back to the OEM. Usually about half to a third, believe it or not, the cost of going back to the OEM for the ECM product.
Okay. All right. Let me just double check here with our IT director, Harshal. Any questions appearing on your screen? Anything else?
Yeah, Jim. Yeah, we do have a question. Brett and Dennis, I'm not sure if you can see it on your panel, but I'll read the question out to you just in case. So the question's from Vince Cord, and Vince is asking, what's the low-speed fan CFM only on your generic constant torque motor?
So
you need him to read. You want him to read that again, or is that clear?
No, I have it. The answer, unfortunately, is not a straight CFM. We can't give you the CFM because that's based on your system, right? Your system setup as far as ductwork and what have you. I can tell you it's 600 RPMs, so it's going to be about half. So whatever CFM you have at full load, you can for the most part say about half of that is what you're going to see, but the motor drops down to 600 RPMs.
Okay. All right. Harshal, any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Yeah, we do have one more from Kendall Owen, and he's asking, any plans to come out with a 42 frame in the condenser motors?
As of right now, we do not have anything in the works. We are always looking for new products. What would be valuable to develop a new product. So I will definitely add that to our feedback, and we'll share that with our product manager, our product team. That request was there, but as of right now, nothing is in the works for a 42 frame replacement.
Okay. All right. Harshal, any other questions you have?
Yeah, we have a follow-up question from Vince. Again, he's asking about half of the cooling CFM. That's his question.
Oh, okay. No, so the half, yeah, okay. So if you're talking about circulation, when you're not heating and cooling, the motor for circulation drops down to 600 RPMs, and that would be off. If I'm understanding the question correctly, it would be half of what the cooling RPMs would be, or in that case, cooling CFM, because that's always your higher speed.
All right. Good. All right. Some good questions here. Harshal, what's next?
No, that's about it, Jim. We don't have any more questions.
All right. I'm not seeing any. Brett and Dennis, do you see any on your screen? Nope.
I just see the last one that was mentioned.
Okay. All right. All right. Good. Well, let's do this. Let's wrap it up and let everybody get back to work. I want to say, gentlemen, great job. There's a lot of information here. For those of you on the call, I want to remind you, we have recorded this webinar. If there's someone from your company that was hoping to be on the call or just got tied up in the field somewhere and couldn't be, each of you on the call today will be receiving the on-demand recorded version. So it is available. I want to say thank you to all of you that are attendees today. We appreciate your business on ControlsCentral.com. Brett and Dennis, thank you for a really good presentation. A lot of information here, and we appreciate your time and effort. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank
Good.
you.
Well, you know what I might do here, Brett, Dennis. Any last final wrap-up comments that you would like to make? Anything that you've missed you wish you would have thrown in there? Good.
For me, it's always, we try to simplify. We respect and understand the contractor has so many products out there to understand and know to fix a system. And so the one takeaway, people get tired of me saying it, probably is 5-pin, 16-pin, and 4-pin. Forget about the other stuff as far as identifying what motor you need for replacement. 5-pin, 16-pin, and 4-pin is the big takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Brett,
All right,
yeah, I'm probably a little more versed with the Ecotech. I've replaced a few. It is an extremely simple exchange out. One of those things when you put it back in and turn it on, and in this case, I wasn't calling for any heat or cooling, and the constant fan was on. It is so quiet, I had to bend down to the machine to see if it was even running. And just a nice motor, like I said, simple to install, very high efficient, and I think your customers will be very pleased with that motor in their system. So thank you.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, again, thank you all for your time this afternoon. Brett, Dennis, thanks again. Harshal, thanks for managing the technology of the webinar from our corporate office in California. Everybody have a good afternoon. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.